Welcome to this micro seminar. It's on accessibility best practices in online learning. It's interesting, today is the day the Biden administration will significantly loosen the federal mask wearing guidelines to protect, obviously, the transmission of COVID. It's good that we're gathering together to discuss the importance of well-designed and facilitated online courses for all online learners, including our students with disabilities. Today's presentation really will focus on accessibility, best practices for general course design. So we thank you for joining us and we really appreciate your support. I'd like to introduce our moderator for today's session, Dr. Sean Moore, 17 years at Oakland University. He's a director of e-learning, but he's also a lecturer. Also interesting to note, I did some research on you, Sean. I understand that you are fluent in French and Spanish as well.
Français, c'est vrai, mais espagnol, juste un petit peu là.
I should have never done that. Sorry, Sean. No, listen, I really appreciate all of the participants in today's session, in particular, Joanna Palmer from Baker and certainly Sean, who are part of the Alliance and have been core team members for many, many years. So thank you to everybody, particularly to Dr. Moore and Dr. Palmer. So I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Moore and he'll take it from here.
Thank you, Patrick. I will do my very offensive French accent. No, I won't talk like that the whole time, just for part of the time to know you. So yeah, as Patrick said, we are here to talk about digital accessibility, which is really, it's always a good topic. I was talking a little bit about this and how OU was fortunate to start to look at this a few years even before the pandemic. But you know, you can really argue this. It's more important now than ever that faculty start to look at this. The pandemic has been horrible for a lot of things, but it's been good for certain things with online learning and certain things to push people along. And so this is one of the things that I think we made some great leaps and bounds in Oakland University. So we're going to have a couple groups talk to us. We have Kelly Clark from Baker that's going to lead us off, and then we'll have Nick Bongris and Jess Navarro from Oakland University that are going to talk just about we'll get a couple different perspectives of digital accessibility. You'll get some great tips throughout. We're going to have some time for questions at the end. For those of you just joining us, if you haven't yet, you can feel free to click the chat button at the bottom, introduce yourself, tell us where you're from. If you want to tell us about the snow outside, you can tell us a little bit about that. But really, I'll just briefly say about digital accessibility. It's such an important thing. And I'm sure folks out there have heard of like UDL, Universal Design for Learning. And while it's not the same thing as digital accessibility, a lot of the good UDL practices will help you become digitally accessible with what you're doing. And this can be things for, you know, we're going to look a lot at when we're looking at the courses, learning management systems, this would be things like websites, things you're doing like that, emails you're sending out to people, files you're attaching, just sort of being cognizant of this, being aware of what we can do to help this make better. And sort of as Patrick had hinted at as well, this is great for a lot of the students that need things like disability support services, but it's also great for just all students in general. There's been a lot of studies out there that show how this helps even students that may not have some of the issues that other students have or difficulties in reading or hearing or vision and things like that. It still helps with that, with their retention, with the grades and things like this. So I won't ramble on too long about this. I don't want to steal anyone's thunder. So we're going to start this off by turning it over to Kelly. And again, we'll have two different presentations, roughly around 15 minutes each, and then we'll have some time for questions. But as you're going with this, if you have questions, there's a little Q&A button at the bottom where you can put your questions, but you can also just use the chat to type in different comments, right? So as our facilitators are talking about stuff, you can say, oh, that's great, or we do this here, here's a link that we have. So we'd love to get this an active conversation as we're going through. So with that being said, I will turn it over to our first presenter from Baker, Kelly Clark. And just so you know, Kelly, you're still muted right now.
Okay, sorry about that. Good morning, everybody. My name is Kelly Clark. I am the Director of Instructional Design at Baker College, and I'm really excited to be here. We have, as an instructional design team, started about 4 years ago to work on accessibility for anything that is in our courses. So any documents, as well as any LMS pieces that we can add as accessible pieces. So we are really leading at Baker College. Our department is leading accessibility, and we work closely with our disability services department. So let's see. Today, I want to talk about two things. I want to discuss types of disabilities, and I also want to discuss accessibility best practices for general course design, PDFs, and Word documents. I will go through heading levels, alternative text, tables, hyperlinks, font and color contrast, and some very brief PDF tips. So why should we care? Accessibility is important so all learners can perceive, decipher, navigate, and interact with all electronic documents. Disabilities can be permanent. So somebody can have one arm, they're blind, deaf, nonverbal. They can be temporary. So somebody with a broken arm, cataracts, an ear infection, laryngitis, or situational. So maybe a new parent holding a baby, so now they're down to one arm. They're working in bad or low lighting, working in a very loud environment, such as a manufacturing plant, or they're a bartender in a loud bar, or they have a heavy accent or talking to somebody with a heavy accent. So as we think about online accessibility, we need to keep in mind that they are auditory, cognitive, motor, visual, and speech impairments. So I want to talk mostly about 3 of those. So ones that we can make an impact on when we're working on any of our electronic documents, such as we want to assist those with auditory disabilities, so the deaf, hard of hearing. We can provide, in order to help them or support them, we need to provide closed captioning as well as transcripts. So to assist those with intellectual cognitive disabilities, we need to avoid acronyms and any unnecessary jargon. I have to say at Baker College, it's just a joke that we all say in the academic department is we use all kinds of acronyms. And they seem to keep growing. Every time we turn around, there's a new acronym. Those can be very confusing for people who have cognitive disabilities. They don't understand or realize what we're talking about. And then to assist those with visual disabilities, such as color blindness, low vision, partial or total blindness, we want to provide them image descriptions, alternative text, audio descriptions for videos, heading levels within a document, table descriptions, use of color, etc. And that's what I'm going to get into in just a minute. So I want to start out with this cartoon. So a student in a wheelchair asks, "Could you please shovel the ramp?" A man who is shoveling the stairs while students wait to enter the school replies, "All these other kids are waiting to use the stairs. When I get through shoveling them off, I will clear the ramp for you." The student in the wheelchair replies, "But if you shovel the ramp, we can all get in." So obviously we all have different perspectives. We are not always thinking of those who may have disabilities. And I think that we probably need to start. And this leads me into a few of the other things that I want to talk about. But just some examples to keep in mind that anybody, either a prospective student, a current student, faculty, staff, anyone on the other end of your computer at any time in your courses, or anybody receiving information from the financial aid department, your registrar department, your HR, marketing, they could have a disability that you're not aware of. All right, the first thing I want to talk about are heading levels. So, and this is when our department started, we really started basic. And this was one of the first things that we started with, was to use the heading level feature in Microsoft Word. So I was notorious for creating a title for all of my documents. I typed it in, I made it black, I bolded it and called it good. Never had used heading levels and never thought that I would make this a habit. And I have over the last several years. But heading levels creates a reading structure to your document. It allows someone using a screen reader to read the document in the correct order. And it also allows those people using a screen reader to use the document map function in order to navigate through their document. So for those who are in a book, you can see, you're able to go through the table of contents and say, well, I want to read just about the cell membrane today. So you can quickly look at the content, table of contents, go to page 102 and know that's where you're going to start reading about cell membranes. If we don't have heading levels in our documents, that is very difficult for someone using a screen reader to be able to do that. They would have to use their screen reader and start going through all of the text in order to find cell membrane, unless we use heading 1, heading 2, heading 3, etc. So for those who, and I want to bring over a document just to show you in Word where to locate these, just in case you're not aware. So I've created a document. I've already added my levels. So I already have heading level 1. So let's say this is the name of my document. Your headings are located up in the top of almost the middle of your Microsoft Word document. Click on heading level 1. And then if you want to structure it, I happen to have in this example 3 levels. So of my hobbies, I have several hobbies and I've only put 2. So I'm going to stress this as our heading 2. The nice thing is once I create a certain font, style, and size for my headings, I'm able to right click and I can click Update Heading 2 to match my selection. So anything else that I want to make, not that this is a heading 2, but if I want to make it a level heading 2, it will automatically structure that format that for me. Okay, so the next thing I want to talk about is alternative text or alt text. So all images, graphics, charts need to have alternative text. Alt text is really just the general description of the image for people using a screen reader. And if we have a detailed chart or picture graph, then you really should also create a caption that would go below the picture itself. So as someone who can see, I would describe what I am seeing in this picture in my text box when I'm formatting the picture. So what I see is a bull terrier dog wearing a pink leash and tied to a tree. Now that's a very simplistic example. There are some that get very difficult, such as charts, graphs. But just in case you are not aware of how to make a picture have alt text, you can right click in the middle of a picture, click Edit Alt Text. The box will pop up and you can describe exactly what you're seeing, so someone with a screen reader has some type of visual picture in their mind. Okay, tables. So tables, you need to really do 3 steps. There are 3 things to do. So the first thing that I do is I highlight the header, so the header row, and up in the document, you should see table tools. The first thing is I click on the layout, as you can see up in my screen, and repeat header rows. So repeat header rows is nice if is very important, honestly. If the table goes into the second page or multiple pages, that header row will continue to repeat. So those who are using a screen reader they don't have to scroll all the way back up to the top, just in case they have forgotten what those header rows happen to say. The second piece in table tools is the design. And that's this example right here. So you need to always have a header row in a table. And you can click on the first column if this isn't going to change, if the information all the way across will not change, and always be able to refer back to that column. The third thing that needs to happen is you need to provide alt text for your table. Now, the unfortunate thing is we upgraded to the brand new Office package. And in the past, Word would catch two things. It would catch that the alt text was missing in a table, and it would also catch the repeat header rows might not have been turned on. For some reason, I'm finding in the new Word, it is not catching either one of those, but it will catch that you may be missing a header row. So just so I have a table, a very brief table set up. So if you click in the very top row, your table tools will highlight automatically. Click on layout and I can repeat header rows, design, and my header row has already been checked because when I created it, it knew it was the very first row. And so they assumed it was the header row. In order to add alt text, again, somewhere in the middle of the table, right click, table properties, and then describe what that table is showing to someone who is using a screen reader. Okay, descriptive links. So the first one is a descriptive or self-described link. So click on the following link to access the Baker College SLOs. So student learning outcomes would be the active link. And that is just self-described. So I know, as well as anybody else who is using a screen reader or is not visually impaired, I know that I'm going to click on something that leads me to student learning outcomes for Baker College. The second link is a non-descriptive or non-described link. I can look at that and I might not have any idea what I'm clicking on. Personally, I like to know if I'm going to click on a link where it's going to take me. And if you have not listened to anybody using a screen reader, or if you don't have a screen reader on your laptop to try out, unfortunately, this is how it reads to somebody with a screen reader. https://my.baker.edu. You get the picture that reads every character in that line. I would find that frustrating. So to have self-described links for videos, for websites, for articles, anything you can think of really should be described. And that is also very simple to do in Word. So I have a link. I want to go to the screen reader demo for digital accessibility. This is the link or the website address. I'm going to copy it. Highlight the title of the YouTube video. Insert. And where's my link? Insert. Link. Add it in the address, and that will turn it into an active link. Fonts. So there are fonts that are sans serif fonts, script fonts, and serif fonts. So the experts are saying that a sans serif font is the most accessible. They have very clean lines. They're very simplistic, as opposed to a script font. People might love to be fancy, but they are difficult to read. And serif fonts are also difficult to read. And I'll show you in just a second the difference between, so here, these are the main serif fonts that are popular. So Calibri, which actually in our courses, we use Calibri in all of our documents and in Canvas. We typically use for the document font throughout, directions, assignment directions, rubrics, size 12, unless it's a heading, then obviously we go bigger. But the other popular sans serif fonts would be Arial and Helvetica. Now, and hopefully you can see the difference between that and a serif font, which is our good old Times New Roman. Geramond is another serif font. Serif fonts, if you can tell, they contain an extra stroke at the ends of the characters, and that is known as the serif. So if you are like me, I am online all day long, and to read a serif font, it all starts to blend together, so that it does get difficult on the eyes. And for those who have low vision, I'm sure it really gets a little bit blurry to read. So at Baker, anyways, we stick with a serif font. So color issues. I know that people love to use color. They really, and sometimes we use color just to put it on our page. It might not even be useful on the page. Just people love color, which is fine. We tend to shy away from color in any of our documents. If faculty want to add color to their documents, that's fine, but we don't. But if we do, color should not be used for emphasis. And my example is students must be able to explain. It's a darker red and it's not bolded. The second one is bolded, and hopefully it stands out to you. Now, unfortunately, for those with a screen reader, and I just did research on this recently, and I guess I did not realize this, but anything that is italicized or bolded, the screen reader does not let the person on the other end know that something is bolded or italicized. So really, using bold doesn't help them. However, where bold might come into play are those who have, well, either good vision, low vision. It stands out. So I know that that must be really important. The one thing I also did read is anybody who has NVDA, which is a screen reader, it's a free screen reader, they recently added the feature of bold. So anything that is bolded on a paper, as they're using NVDA, the person on the other end knew that it was bolded. However, they had so many complaints, so they disabled the feature. As a user, you can enable it yourself, but they disabled it because of the complaints and apparently of the overuse of bold. So it was really too much extra noise for those using screen readers. So I do have to say, when I do get some documents from our content experts, they do like bold. So, if I see half the paper, half the assignment directions in bold, then I go through and unbold and maybe leave a few words here and there bolded. So another example of color, if you could see my start and cancel. So instead of saying select the green button to advance to the next chapter, I would say select the green start button to advance to the next chapter, or the red cancel button to end.
Kelly, I'm sorry to interrupt you. I'm just going to give you a quick 2-minute warning here.
Okay, all right. I'm getting there, sorry. So color contrast. This is real quick. We want to make sure that you have high color contrast if you are going to use color, and make sure you stay away from low color contrast. There are all kinds of free contrast checkers on the website. I typically use WebAIM contrast checker, and that's only because I've taken several courses for accessibility through WebAIM. PDF demonstration. So these are difficult. PDFs can be very difficult to work on when it comes to accessibility. At Baker College, we have Adobe DC, which is kind of like the Cadillac of fixing or using PDFs. Just a few brief things. You can tell typically if a PDF is not accessible if they look like they've been photocopied. And sometimes we get those documents that half of a page is crooked on the document that we're receiving, so it's clearly photocopied, which is not accessible. Has a low resolution, so it could be blurry, cloudy, dusty looking. Has text that cannot be highlighted. So if you cannot highlight a sentence, then it is not accessible. On the other hand, PDFs that are accessible, they look nice and clear, and they do have text that can be highlighted and selected. There are times where I have a complicated PDF that actually I resave it in Word. I do all my accessibility formatting in Word, and then I resave it in PDF and run the checker again once I get back to Adobe DC. I have, so Sean, I have what, 1 minute?
That's fine.
Okay, all right. Just for those, and this is really quick, I have a demonstration for those of you who have not ever heard a screen reader.
We're not getting the audio on this. I'm not sure if you
Oh.
put the box for sharing audio when you're sharing screen, but what we might be able to do is share these links in the chat so they can look at it.
Okay, all right, perfect. That's
I think
fine.
so too. And Sean, we're going to post this on our webpage anyway
Okay.
after, so I think we'll have it.
All right, perfect. So, all right, so just to wrap up, all I really want to say is accessibility is so important. I understand it is the law, but it really is the right thing to do. And that's how we feel in instructional design and at Baker College. We want to make sure that we have not only good design for everyone, but especially those who actually, really need the assistance in going through our courses and maneuvering through our documents.
Thank you so much, Kelly. And
Okay.
as Joanna said, we will be sharing the presentations as well, and we might even start to share some links in the chat here that you can look at. We will turn it over now to the folks at Oakland University.
Okay, so I will stop sharing.
All right, I'm assuming everybody can hear me. Jess, give me a thumbs up if you can hear me. All right, and I'll move this over. All right, so we're going to cover, in terms of digital accessibility, videos and accessibility checkers. I'll go through the objectives. Really what we want you to do is just kind of motivate you to try some of these things. And part of that is identifying the importance of transcripts and closed captions, cover some of the best practices, and also recognize how to ensure more accessible documents within your courses by using accessibility checkers. So Kelly was kind of alluding this towards the end of her presentation with the attitude that accessibility is essential for some, but it's really beneficial for everybody. And like, I can claim that I'm guilty. When I'm watching Netflix, I like to have the captions on. When I'm watching YouTube, I like to have the captions on. I don't have an auditory disability, but I love captions. So when you do this, you're not just doing it for the people with disabilities, you're doing it for everybody. Some of the things that I like to champion with videos is give the learners the duration of the video, so a student can know before they click on it how long the sections are going to be. So I like to have them in digestible chunks. This is kind of a design best practice, but to really make it accessible, you really want to try having captions and the full transcript, whether it's a docx or a PDF that gives you the full text of the video. So you have a choice here. If that video already exists, why reinvent the wheel? You can use videos that already exist if they're out there. You don't have to spend the time, making it all by yourself. It is a best practice to see, does this video that you want to use have captions? Does it have a full transcript? A lot of times, if it has captions and no transcripts, a lot of people still use them in their courses. If it doesn't, there is a way to get full transcripts, and we'll be covering that in a few slides. So we'll just kind of let you linger with that one. YouTube videos. YouTube is by far the biggest website on the internet. So it's likely that a lot of us are using YouTube videos in your courses. Having that YouTube video embedded in your course will ensure that your learners aren't getting distracted by other YouTube videos. Keeping the learner in that environment is the best design practice. But a lot of those YouTube videos also have captions. So YouTube has automatic captions on almost every single one of their videos. I don't think I've seen a YouTube video in it's probably been a lot of years now since I've seen a YouTube video without captions. So that's usually a good bet to use if you're using pre-made videos. There's other places to get videos from too, whether that's Vimeo or whether your institution has a video library like Yuja or Panopto. A lot of these services also have auto captioning services, and if they don't, they might have a place where you can upload a caption file that actually syncs with your video. So a lot of these video hosting sites do have a lot of attention paid to the details of captions. When the video is not yours, let's say you're using a YouTube video, this is a big part of accessibility that we don't talk about a whole lot. Making sure the link works. Again, it's essential to everyone that your link works. So at the end of the semester, when you're moving this over to a future semester, it's a best practice to go through all of your links and make sure that all the videos still come up. If they don't, you have to find a video that says the same thing. And if you can't do that, maybe that's when you end up making your own video if you can't find a suitable replacement. Making your own video sounds like a big jump, but I can say that it's habitual. It's really fun. But the first time you do it might not be as fun. It's always best to start with a script. Like, just type out what you're going to say. It also pays to talk with instructional designers, people like Kelly, Jess, myself. We might tell you to make your video without specific dates in it so you can reuse it, unless you plan on remaking the videos every semester, which not a lot of us have the time to do. But we can also give you advice as to if there's a place on your campus that's best for recording your video. Is there a media lab? Is there a little recording booth? Or is it just best to do it from your office or from within your classroom? All of these kind of things help the pre-planning of the making of your video. A lot of people tell us, I'm not good at reading off of a script, but it's a best practice to start with a script for a bunch of reasons. But you will practice it a few times, and you'll also learn if you record it and play it back, you'll hear how spirited your voice is. Like, nobody wants to sound like Bueller. When I talk in my recordings, I like to pretend I'm doing a TED Talk, or I pretend that I'm Bob Barker from The Price is Right, because I know that any embellishment in my head will sound a little bit more entertaining than what I would sound like if I was just, talking monotone. What does a script look like? Okay, so this is what an example of one of the scripts that I've written. And what I've done, the main thing I want you to take from this slide is that I've put the visuals or the visual transitions in bracketed text. So when I'm reading my script out loud, I don't read the bracketed text out loud. That kind of tells my inner self what to click on before I say the next thing. So this helps in two ways. It helps you while you're recording the video, but it also serves as your transcript when you're done, because the readers will read what you're saying, but also see in bracketed text what they should be seeing when they're just reading the text transcript. Whether you're clicking on the forum link or clicking on the book resource, when they're reading those things, they can know what we're actually talking about. There's a lot of other benefits using a script. Like I said before, you can save it as a docx or a PDF, and that's your full text transcript. So you've got your video, and you just put the link or the file right underneath the video. That's the full text transcript. It keeps you on topic. So a lot of us, we like to lecture off the cuff, right? We've done this lecture for years, but then we go off on this tangent and we spend 15 extra minutes on something that we might have been able to cut out. So having the transcript keeps you on topic, prevents the rambling. Also, whenever we go off the cuff, we say, and we kind of hold our thoughts. If you're not typing ums or ahs in your script, it's a lot less likely that you'll be saying or ah when you make your recording. If you don't like typing, which me, I'm not a huge fan of typing, you can just record your voice, or you can have a site like otter.ai record your voice, and it will actually type out what you're saying out loud. A lot of us have a problem with typing and say, well, how I typed it isn't quite the way I would say it out loud. So this is kind of the flip of that. You can just say it out loud, and then otter.ai will actually type what you're saying out loud. It's voice to text. And what's cool about this is you can export in docx or a PDF for your transcript, or if you need a caption file, you can even export an SRT file, which a lot of the video hosting sites accept as a caption file. There's other paid versions of Otter where you can actually take your MP4. Let's say you didn't use a caption at all. You can take your MP4 and upload that to otter.ai, and otter.ai will make the captions and the transcripts for you after the fact. So if you don't like putting the cart behind the horse properly and you want to make the video first, you can always upload that video to otter.ai if you've got one of the more premium versions. So whether you want the script before or after, I think Otter is a really cool site to make captions and or transcripts. With recording, a lot of people say, what do I like to use to record videos? Use whatever's comfortable. There are just so many programs out there, it doesn't even pay to talk about how many of them there are. I would say use what your institution supports, because then if you need help, there's support on your campus for it. And don't worry about the first video that you make. You'll get better the more that you make. The first one's usually the worst. So just stick with it and you'll get better. There are some different techniques between editing, and you'll kind of get used to that as you go. And your institution will usually have a preference as to where to put your videos. So if you put your videos on YouTube, it'll caption it for you. Your campus might have Panopto or UJA. I would say to put it wherever the university supports you putting the video, because that makes the decision easy and you'll be supported. I already talked about captions. They're super popular even for people without disabilities. The auto captions aren't always accurate, but if you're not supplying your own captions exactly, it is a good start. If your learners don't like watching the video, a lot of them will just skip the video and just read the transcript. There's people who aren't, visual and auditory learners. They just want to read it. So you're actually supplying a transcript to the people that just prefer to read. All right, I'm going to turn it over to Jess so she can talk about accessibility checkers.
Much appreciated, Nick. Let me share my screen. Jump back into our presentation. So I want to be cognizant of time. My name is Jess. I work with Nick at Open University. And really, I just wanted to round out this discussion by quickly reviewing a couple of accessibility checkers. And really, whether you are brand new at this or whether you are a veteran, as you've seen in this very short presentation, there's a lot to keep track of. And it's easy to leave something out. It's easy to forget something, especially when it comes to our documents and files. So the three that I plan to very briefly discuss today is the accessibility checker built into Microsoft Word. For those of you who are fans of Google Docs, and I certainly know I am after this pandemic and all of the collaborative work that we do with, our fellow faculty, our students, staff, etc. There is actually an add-on called Grackle that you can use for Google Docs. And then last but not least, I wanted to briefly mention Blackboard Ally, which is something you can integrate with many popular LMS systems, including Moodle, which we use at OU, but also Blackboard, Canvas, and Brightspace. And I'd be very curious as I go through this, those of you throw into the chat, which of these you have used or have heard of. So very briefly for Microsoft Word, if you did not know, if you are creating a document in Microsoft Word under the Review tab, there is this option to use an accessibility checker. And all of those great things, those contrast issues, the heading levels, the alt text for images, Word will actually check all of these things in your document on this tab. It's going to pop open this little tab or window on the side of your document. It's going to identify any issues. It'll even help make suggestions or help you identify where you can go in and fix those things. Grackle, on the other hand, is an add-on that you do have to add. So you would go to the Google Workplace Marketplace, and this is where you can freely download this add-on. And then when you open up your Google Docs, out of all the tabs in your menu you have across the top, you might see a new one for add-ons, and this is where you would find Grackle. It functions very similarly to the accessibility checker that you see in Microsoft Word, and it will check for, all these different things. And so I've got a little snapshot here on the side where you can see it checks roughly 22 different things. I know I certainly can't keep 22 things straight in my head every time I'm working on a document. And again, it will flag anything that it might see as an issue, as well as help you, make changes. Like, do you have a table that needs those various tags and things like that? I know in the past, before I had Grackle, I used to basically have to take my Google Doc, download it to Microsoft Word, and then use that accessibility checker in Microsoft Word. And now we get to skip those steps. You can have this available right within your Google Docs. Lastly, I wanted to mention Blackboard Ally. Again, this is an LMS integrated tool. It is a paid tool, unlike the two I had just mentioned. But what's great about it is that it is based on the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines. It also has use to faculty as well as students, because students have the ability to download your various files and documents in alternative formats. And it helps you as an instructor basically scan, again, for issues of accessibility within your course documents and help you make those changes. So on the student side of things, I just wanted to show briefly, if it's a document, it will offer various formats. It's good at identifying what type of document or file that you have. And so in this case, for example, if a student was on a phone, they may want to download this as a PDF instead of a Word document. Or if it's a scanned PDF, for example, I was taking a Spanish course this semester, a lot of documents from Spanish textbooks that were not OCR'd, and there were a lot of words I wanted to look up in that document. I was able to, using Ally, download that document as an OCR'd PDF, and then I was able to actually identify, copy and paste those words and look up anything that I couldn't see. As we've mentioned a lot of times in this presentation, this isn't just for people who need accommodations. Some of us might have a lot of eye strain, might be really tired, and we might want to be able to look at some of these, documents in our courses as an audio file instead of something we have to read, and that's something that Ally can do. Ally gives these scores for your files as well as the course overall, and these really handy visuals. Obviously, we're always trying to get to the green versus the orange or the red. And then here's just a quick screenshot of the type of summary that Blackboard Ally can give for your course overall. It gives the overall score. It also identifies the main types of files and documents that you have in your course. For example, this is one where there's 15 PDFs and 32 Word documents. And then it also helps identify what are the documents or files that have the most issues. And once again, very similar to those other accessibility checkers that we see in Microsoft Word or Grackle, it'll help you identify what the issues are, as well as make those changes. So this little tab can pop up on the side when you click the little score icon. And for example, if an image needs an alt text, you can do that directly using Ally without having to download the image, add alt text in the document, re-upload it, all that stuff. Ally makes this really easy. I know we are up on time, so thank you so much. I'm going to review these comments in the chat, and I think at this point, we'd love to take questions.
Thank you both. I want to thank both the groups of presenters, Kelly from Baker and Nick and Jess from OU. We do have some time for questions. I will start us off with, I'm going to paste something into the chat here. I'm sharing with us the Oakland University Digital Accessibility page, which is a great resource for you to look at. And one of the questions we had in the chat was, could you explain and discuss convert to text? I have struggled with making tables accessible when trying to adapt scan tables. And I believe this was when Kelly was talking about Microsoft Word.
So scanned tables? Is that what
Can you
you're
explain
asking?
and discuss convert to text? Because they had struggled with making tables accessible, basically converting that to text.
Oh, so describing what you're seeing in a table? Is that what you're asking?
Potentially, if someone
Yep.
asks the question, if you want to clarify, feel free to jump on audio or chat and clarify what the question was. The exact wording was, can you explain and discuss convert to text?
Yeah, I'm not sure if that's a product or if that's a concept, but I like to avoid using tables because of accessibility. And now that you can establish header rows and stuff, it's a bit easier. But for me, if I look at a table that could be explained better in a paragraph, sometimes I just convert it that way.
And I would think that anything that's scanned becomes infinitely harder because then it's actually an image, correct? Right.
Right.
So then you have to rely on the alt text description for the image, even if that image is of a table.
Exactly. And in a PDF, I've had a couple, let's say for a finance or an accounting course, they have all kinds of tables and they could be very complicated. So then I end up, and it might not be an accessible table because it is an image. So then I have to describe absolutely everything that I see in that table. And that can take some time, but it has to be done. So if it's really part of an assignment, especially, or even an example that might not be part of the book or the resources that the students are provided, then everything has to be retyped out. I don't know that there's a good way around that.
Thank you. I know Nick answered a little bit of the question about the red green colors and basically stating that it's more about the contrast of the colors. That's the bigger issue than avoiding using a specific color. I don't know if you want to quickly say anything more about that, or we can also, if anyone else has any questions, feel free to put them into the chat.
Yeah, when you use red as an indicator, like we've seen course designs where they say everything in red is going to be on the test. And they kind of like bury red text in their course content. And then a student who can identify red will know what's on the test, and a student who's colorblind is not going to know what's on the test. So that's a very poor way of using color to identify or signify something. So if a faculty or teacher does have an affinity for putting color to indicate certain things, you would want to also put text that indicates like this is going to be on the test. Not just red, but you would want to indicate it like important or something other than a color indicator.
Right. And I think somebody, was it Patrick? Was it you who asked what other colors you could use that might not be more susceptible for color blindness, which 2 out of the 3 color blind diseases, they all involve red. 2 of them involve red. So I would say blue-orange is a color combination that I have read about. Brown, which is not exciting. Obviously black. I really do think, though, and I think Nick said the contrast really makes a makes a difference. So that's why it's important to use those. And there's, like I mentioned, there are so many free out there on the web to use.
Thank you. There was a question about, are there any special considerations for things like spreadsheets, or do all document rules tend to apply?
Yeah, double checking. Oh, go ahead, Kelly.
So one thing, yes, everything applies. You should have a heading. One thing I've noticed is what will come up in the checker in an Excel spreadsheet is that you have to name your tabs at the bottom. They have to have a name. That's important. As opposed to sheet one. Yeah. Yep. Go ahead.
that as you're alluding to, Excel does have its own built-in accessibility checker that can help with this. And I believe Google Sheets, you can have a version of Greco to use when you're using Google Sheets.
And PowerPoint would be the same. They also have their own accessibility checker.
And if you use tables that get out of hand, like tables within tables, accessibility checkers do not like that. So if you can find any possible way to simplify your tables, that is a great start.
Well, thank you all. We really appreciate this. It is a big, tricky thing to do. That's why I want to include some of those links. We will be sharing the presentations out there, and they have some helpful links. And that link that I shared for the OU's web pages, it has, I think, 6 different guides on there that you can look at specifically that aren't just Moodle specific about things you can do for digital accessibility. So we hope you have learned something good that you can take away from it. And I'll turn it over to Patrick now to do some final announcements.
Sean, thank you so much. We're really blessed. This is our 6th or 7th micro seminar. We've got them on our website. This will be on the website. Flexible teaching models, online cheating, it's really a number of topics that are very current and are available to you. Just go to the website, A4EOE.org, and you'll be able to find them. So what will happen is we'll make sure this particular presentation is available on the website as well. We'll send out an email to our database. If anybody would like to join our database, please send me an email. You can just send it to drpat@bignet.net, and I'd be happy to include you. If you want to participate in the Alliance in any way, shape, or form, we'd love to add you to our team. So please send an email on that. But in conclusion, please know our next micro seminar will be on April 15th. And we're going to do a survey of our member institutions to just kind of get a feel for where things are at when it comes to online education. And I think that annually, when we've done our survey, it's been very informative and very helpful to anybody in online learning. We're also looking to have in the fall, hopefully, a symposium face-to-face. We're looking to try to do that in October, but that'll be something we'll determine as time goes on. So again, thank you to all of our presenters, I'm sorry. In particular, Kelly, Nick, and Jess, and Sean, again, thank you for your moderation of today's event. And thank you to everybody for supporting the Alliance. Have a good one. Have a great weekend.